India is closely examining the implication of a major ruling by the United States Supreme Court, striking down President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs. New Delhi's Commerce Ministry said it has taken note of the judgment and subsequent announcement by the US administration. In a statement, the ministry said it is studying all developments for their implications. The Supreme Court of the United States, in a 6-3 decision, ruled that President Trump exceeded his authority by invoking the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 to impose sweeping import tariffs. The court said the emergency statute does not explicitly grant the president the power to levy duties, which the US Constitution assigns to Congress. The ruling is being viewed as one of the most consequential legal setbacks of Trump's second term, with far-reaching implications for the US trade policy. Within hours of the ruling, President Trump moved to reassert tariff authority. He signed a proclamation imposing a temporary 10% ad valorem import duty on articles entering the United States. The White House said the measure invoked under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974 will remain in effect for 150 days and take effect at 12:01 Eastern Time on February 24. In a post, Trump said it was his great honor to sign a global 10% tariff on all countries. Reacting to the court's decision, Trump called the ruling deeply disappointing and criticized certain members of the court.
The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country.
The legal developments come after a volatile period in India-US trade ties. An initial 50% tariff was imposed on India, including a 25% component linked to crude oil trade with Russia. Under a recent interim trade understanding, the reciprocal component was reduced to 18%. The additional 25% duty tied to Russian oil imports was later withdrawn, after Washington said India committed to stop direct or indirect imports of energy from Moscow and expanded purchases of American energy products. India has not announced any retaliatory measures and has said it is studying the situation carefully. Former Indian diplomat K.P. Fabian described the ruling as a victory for American democracy, saying institutional checks has functioned. He added that President Trump may pursue more country-specific or commodity-specific measures.
Well, in many European capitals, and I hope in India too, the champagne bottles should be opened. Because this is a victory, though this is not the end of the story. What has happened is that democracy in America has proved that it can correct itself. But having said that, President Trump will find other means to impose tariffs. But he will not be able to make again the assertions which he has been making. X percentage of tariff, and he calls it reciprocal, quote unquote. And now there is nothing reciprocal about it. And has any media in India or in the West pointed out that there is nothing reciprocal in it? So, that sort of bravado, with which aggressiveness with which he announced, he will have to change. Now he will have to be a little more country specific or commodity specific. That, blanket, that will not work.
Congress MP Manish Tiwari warned the episode could trigger a prolonged constitutional confrontation between the US judiciary and the administration.
But as I earlier stated, that this is going to set the stage for an unprecedented confrontation between the US Supreme Court or the US judiciary and the Trump administration. How this pans out over the next 3 years is going to redefine the United States in more ways than one. If the Trump administration continues to reiterate what it has said after the US Supreme Court judgment, then obviously it is going to spark off a fresh round of litigation. And if the Supreme Court was to again hold that these powers also vest with the legislature, that is why I am saying that in more ways than one, this constitutional confrontation will redefine the United States of America over the next 3 years, 36 months.
For now, New Delhi is watching developments in Washington closely. With a new 10% global tariff set to take effect and the legal battles likely to continue, the future trajectory of US trade policy remains uncertain. India says it will assess the implication before charting its next move.